Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Coen brothers like comedy thriller with perfect score compared to Yellowstone. An underappreciated black comedy film, which has bagged a flawless score, is drawing comparisons to the early works of the Coen brothers and the hit TV show Yellowstone. Leroy, Texas had a quiet release in the US and UK at the start of 2024, but despite the low-key launch, it managed to become one of the top-rated films of the year on Rotten Tomatoes, racking up a perfect 100%. The film is now available for streaming, allowing movie buffs to catch up on one of the most critically acclaimed flicks of the past year. It's currently streaming on Now and Sky Cinema, reports the Daily Record. The film features John Magaro, known for his roles in Past Lives and The Many Saints of Newark, alongside Steve Zahn, recognized for his performances in The White Lotus and War for the Planet of the Apes. In the plot, Ray, played by Magaro, needs cash to help his wife kickstart a business, but his private investigator pal Skip, Zahn, suspects she's having an affair. After being mistaken for a hitman and handed a wad of cash, Ray finds himself pursued by the actual killer as he tries to escape town with both the money and his life intact. The film has drawn comparisons to the early work of the Coen brothers, known for iconic films like Fargo and No Country for Old Men. Critics have been quick to point out the similarities, with one reviewer commenting, "Leroy, Texas is full of Coen brothers-style charm, with its dark humor, absurd interludes, and existential middle-of-nowhere location, combined with a solid level of bloody violence and characters you can't help but root for." Another succinctly described it as a zany Coen brothers-like comedy thriller, while another added, "Leroy, Texas channels the Coen brothers in a hilarious black comedy with tragic twists." John Magaro, Steve Zahn, and a terrifying Dylan Baker are superb in a film that continually surprises. Leroy, Texas is a must-see. Film enthusiasts also noted the stylistic echoes of the Coen brothers' work in Leroy, Texas. One fan shared their thoughts online, saying, "A modern Western with grit and a dash of dark comedy. Think Southern Fargo without the Minnesota dialect. The actors are spot on for their respective parts. I enjoyed the ending, but could be easily convinced it should have been better." A viewer raved, "Loved this movie, totally unexpected. A great dark comedy, one of my favorites I've seen this year." Another was equally impressed, stating, "Genuinely excellent, surprisingly good and very Coen brother-like. This odd buddy crime dark comedy really ticks all the boxes and ends as strong as it starts. Yes is absurdly implausible, but it's so much fun you quickly forget about the destination and just enjoy the ride. All the cast are excellent, and the direction and writing truly shine. This film is violent at times, but never gratuitously, and though there is nothing new or unique, here what there is expertly crafted and delivered." The film also drew parallels to a hit TV show, especially because of the wild, cowboy-esque attire donned by Zahn's character. A viewer pointed out, "Fabulous directing. Perfect casting. Outrageous cinematography, not quite as gruesome as Yellowstone." For those eager to watch the flick, Sky Cinema can be added to their Sky TV package for an extra £10 per month, or they can opt for Now Cinema membership at £6.99 monthly for half a year, or grab an entertainment and cinema combo for £13.99 a month, also for 6 months. In the desolate expanse of Montana, where the horizon blurred into an infinite stretch of prairie, a lonely gas station flickered its neon promise of fuel and snacks. It was called Big Jack's Fill-Up, though no one could recall meeting anyone named Jack. Inside, Ellie Riggs leaned against the counter, chewing a piece of gum with the slow deliberation of someone killing time. Ellie, in her mid-30s and stuck between dreams and monotony, had taken the job 6 months ago. She wasn't a fan of the job, but Big Jack's was as good a place as any to hide out while she figured out her next move. Her partner, Wade, A wiry, nervous man with a questionable sense of loyalty sat in the corner thumbing through a battered copy of How to Invest, a guide for people who can barely count. The night was quiet, save for the occasional creak of the building settling. Ellie's gaze shifted to the security monitor, a grainy black and white screen showing the empty lot outside. The calm was almost unsettling, like the eye of a storm that hadn't yet arrived. It came in the form of a beat-up pickup truck pulling into the station. A man stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a cowboy hat pulled low enough to obscure his face. He walked inside with the kind of purposeful stride that set Ellie's instincts on edge. "Evening," the man said, his voice low and gravelly. He removed his hat, revealing a chiseled face marred by a faint scar running from his eyebrow to his cheek. "Need to fill up." Ellie nodded, sliding a clipboard across the counter for him to sign. Standard protocol when the pumps were out of order, which they always seemed to be. The man scribbled his name, Roy Blackburn. "Cash or card?" Ellie asked, watching him closely. "Cash," he replied, pulling out a wad of bills that looked suspiciously crisp for a man driving such a wreck. As she made the transaction, Wade's voice piped up from the corner. "Say, you're not one of those cattle rustlers, are ya?" Ellie shot Wade a look that could curdle milk. "Ignore him, he's been reading too many dime novels." Roy's lips curled into a faint smirk. "No cattle, just passing through." He tipped his hat and walked out, leaving behind a faint scent of leather and suspicion. Ellie watched him drive off, her unease lingering like a shadow. The next morning, news spread fast. At the nearby Barty Ranch, someone had stolen 10 head of prime Angus cattle. Sheriff Clay Bristow, a man with more belly than backbone, showed up at Big Jack's asking if they'd seen anything unusual. Ellie hesitated but decided not to mention Roy. Something about him didn't sit right, but she wasn't about to start a witch hunt based on a gut feeling. As the sheriff waddled off, Wade leaned in close. "You're thinking what I'm thinking, right? That you need to stop watching conspiracy videos." "No, Ellie, it's him. That Blackburn guy. He's gotta be behind this." Ellie sighed, already regretting her decision to keep Wade around, but she couldn't shake the feeling that he might be onto something. The plot thickened that evening when Ellie found a blood-stained handkerchief stuffed in the station's trash bin. Her heart skipped a beat as she unfolded it, revealing the initials RB stitched in faded thread. Wade, ever the opportunist, suggested they confront Blackburn themselves. "You're insane," Ellie said. "What are we supposed to do? Walk up to him and demand he confess?" "Not exactly. We stake him out, see what he's up to." Against her better judgment, Ellie agreed. That night, they drove to the outskirts of town, where Blackburn's truck was parked outside a dilapidated barn. Wade produced a pair of binoculars he'd picked up at a pawn shop and passed them to Ellie. "You see anything?" he whispered. Ellie squinted through the lenses. Inside the barn, Blackburn was talking to a wiry man with a tattoo of a snake coiled around his neck. Between them stood a massive black duffel bag. When the wiry man unzipped it, Ellie's stomach dropped. The bag was full of cash. "Holy," Wade began, but Ellie clamped a hand over his mouth. "We're leaving," she hissed, dragging him back to the car. The next day, Sheriff Bristow showed up again, this time with a deputy in tow. They'd gotten an anonymous tip about the cattle theft, and Blackburn was now their prime suspect. The sheriff asked Ellie and Wade to keep an eye out, which Wade found hilarious given how little the sheriff seemed to do himself. Things escalated when Blackburn returned to Big Jack's that night. He walked in, calm as ever, and leaned on the counter. "I hear you've been asking questions," he said, his tone as sharp as a barbed wire fence. Ellie froze, her mind racing. "Just doing my civic duty." Blackburn's eyes narrowed. "Let me give you some advice. Don't." He tossed a 20 on the counter for a pack of smokes and walked out, leaving Ellie's nerves frayed to the breaking point. It all came to a head 2 nights later when Ellie and Wade, emboldened by a combination of adrenaline and stupidity, decided to break into the barn. Armed with bolt cutters and a flashlight, they crept inside, only to find the barn empty, no cash, no cattle, no Blackburn. "Maybe he skipped town," Wade whispered. Before Ellie could respond, a low chuckle echoed from the shadows. They spun around to find Blackburn and the snake-tattooed man blocking their exit. "You've got guts," Blackburn said, his hand resting on the holster at his hip. "Not much sense, but guts." Ellie swallowed hard. We just wanted to know the truth." "The truth?" Blackburn stepped closer, his boots crunching on the straw. "The truth is, you're in over your heads." The situation seemed hopeless until Sheriff Bristow burst in, shotgun in hand. "Drop it, Blackburn." Blackburn sighed, raising his hands. "You're making a mistake, Sheriff." "Maybe," Bristow said, "but at least I'm making it with style." In the chaos that followed, Ellie and Wade managed to slip out. By the time the dust settled, Blackburn and his accomplice were in handcuffs, and the sheriff was basking in his moment of glory. Back at Big Jack's, Ellie sat behind the counter, nursing a cup of coffee. Wade, ever the optimist, was already spinning the tale into something resembling heroism.